Hello and welcome to the Coscosmos video channel. We are an online store specializing in cosplay costumes. You are now listening to our original novel, The Extraordinary Werewolf. If you have any interest in cosplay outfits, you can contact us at cosmos.com. Now, let's begin the story. Previously on The Extraordinary Werewolf, Glenn, a highly skilled transmigrator, violently defended himself from two attackers, one of whom turned out to be a werewolf. Injured and exhausted, he managed to decapitate both men before collapsing in the forest. The road where he had passed out was visible from where he fought in the woods, so Glenn wasn't lost. His vision blurred and cleared intermittently. His body felt as soft as a slug, and he desperately wanted to just fall asleep right there. But, according to the original owner's memories, this place was extremely sinister and terrifying. If he closed his eyes now, he might never open them again. The sky had fully darkened, with a single full moon hanging silently in the night. The moonlight illuminated his path, but Glenn felt no sense of comfort. Ahead, a dilapidated signpost leaned precariously by the roadside. Written on it in the common human language of this world was Bayek. This was the great spot the original owner, Dylan, had chosen. At the time, he thought it was incredibly lucky to have bought such a cheap house, and even felt secretly proud for a while. It wasn't until he followed the previous owner to this town that he felt something was slightly off. Glenn, his face pale, passed the signpost. A cold breeze blew, and the sign creaked a few dry grating sounds.
I hope there aren't any monsters tonight,
Glenn prayed inwardly, checking the memories the original owner, since moving into this town, had heard spine-chilling, bizarre noises every single night. A few times, it sounded like something was scratching at his window. Because of this, the original owner hadn't had a good night's sleep in days. Bayek town was utterly silent at night. A suffocating silence. Glenn tried his best not to make a sound, slowly walking along the flagstone road. Tall weeds grew between the flagstones, making the area look desolate. Having to endure pain while remaining vigilant against danger made Glenn mentally exhausted. Finally, he saw his house. It stood between two larger buildings, with climbing vines covering the exterior walls, looking utterly shabby compared to its neighbors. The original owner, Dylan, had bought a two-story house with a small garden and a dilapidated storage shed, barely bigger than a doghouse.
I am finally here.
A surge of relief hit Glenn, and he sped up his steps. Woof, woof, woof. Suddenly, a series of frantic barks rang out, nearly scaring the soul out of Glenn. Hearing such a loud noise on such a silent night would startle anyone. He turned to look and saw a stout bulldog, its eyes gleaming fiercely, snarling and barking at him. This was his next-door neighbor's dog. Its owner was a tall old man who enjoyed bullying the original owner. Besides having a strange temper, the old man often took things from Dylan's house, whether Dylan saw him or not, as if they belonged to him. The bulldog, emboldened by its master, frequently chased and bit the original owner, tearing several of his clothes. Though the original owner used to be a reckless young man, his demeanor had changed greatly after his family's misfortune. Moreover, the old man was clearly stronger than Dylan, and not someone the original owner could resist. On top of that, the old man often carried a hunting rifle, which further deterred the original owner from causing trouble.
Glenn stopped, his eyes coldly fixed on the bulldog, his right hand already reaching for the dagger.
The bulldog suddenly sniffed the air vigorously, and a look of excitement flashed in its canine eyes. It smelled blood. After a few low growls, it licked its teeth and approached Glenn.
Noticing the change in the dog, Glenn remained still, his right hand tightening around the dagger. He realized this beast intended to taste human flesh today. He decided he couldn't hold back either.
Perhaps accustomed to bullying Dylan, the bulldog showed no respect for a human and continued to close in. When it was just 2 meters away, it suddenly lunged.
Glenn reacted instantly. As his body twisted sideways, the dagger sliced a perfect crescent arc,
accurately plunging into the bulldog's neck. Man and dog separated. Glenn stumbled, nearly falling while the dog dropped to the ground, convulsing violently. To his surprise, Glenn found that although his mind was exhausted, his strength seemed to have recovered significantly. He had expected to collapse, but he managed to stay upright. Too tired to ponder the reason, Glenn ignored the wailing dog on the ground and walked directly into his yard. He retrieved a key hidden under a rock and entered the house. The house smelled musty, but not overwhelmingly so. In his current state, Glenn had no mind to examine the furnishings. All he wanted was rest. He closed the door, stepped onto the wooden stairs, and rushed non-stop to his bedroom. The moment he pushed open the bedroom door, he practically fell onto the relatively soft bed. His strained nerves finally relaxed, and his consciousness began to drift. He didn't know how long he slept. Half awake, Glenn felt an intense hunger in his belly. It was agonizing, but he couldn't bring himself to get up. He was too exhausted. Even that terrible hunger couldn't drag him out of bed. And just before his consciousness completely sank back into sleep, he thought he heard the sound of some creature gnawing. Outside the bedroom window, the bright full moon shone into the room. A tall, slender shadow moved outside the window. A long, thin forelimb slowly scraped against the wall, making a faint, sharp friction sound, indicating the creature clearly had claws. The next day,
Glenn was awakened by a violent, intense hunger. The moment he opened his bloodshot eyes, he leaped out of bed. After resting, his mind was no longer as weary as the day before. Only the hunger tormented him. Glenn had never experienced this kind of hunger before. It was almost destroying his sanity, making him desperate to devour anything in sight. He rushed out of the bedroom and straight to the kitchen, remembering the original owner had some leftovers and ingredients.
After a frantic search, Glenn had turned the kitchen upside down.
Whether it was leftovers, raw vegetables, or even moldy food, he wolfed it all down. Only then did that horrible hunger slightly subside. What is going on? Logically, I've only been hungry for a day and a night. It shouldn't be this extreme, Glenn thought, sitting on the messy kitchen floor, his brow deeply furrowed. I still feel incredibly hungry. I need to eat more.
Glenn sat for a moment, then got back up.
He suddenly paused, realizing his body felt much stronger. When he stood up, he felt remarkably energized. Glenn felt his arms, noticing his muscles felt solid and were clearly larger than the original owners had been. Is this because of my transmigration? Is my golden finger a physical enhancement? Glenn didn't have the luxury of thinking too much right now. Finding food was the priority, so he temporarily put the question aside.
He searched the house again but found nothing else edible, which deeply frustrated him.
Do I have to go out of town to buy food?
Glenn sat on the living room sofa, contemplating. There were no places to trade in this small town. Bayek's residents had to go elsewhere for supplies. To get resources, he had to travel to another town, but the journey was not short, usually requiring a full day out and back.
I don't have much money left either.
Just as Glenn was agonizing over his dilemma, he heard a familiar voice shouting outside.
Tori, where are you, boy?
It was the old man's voice. Tori was the dog's name.
Glenn heard the voice and suddenly smiled.
Would you like me to generate the next chapter, or would you like to hear a summary of Glenn's strange physical changes?